Hello, welcome to our discussion for MDM650. I'm Melissa and I'm joined by
Millie?
And Joanna.
Perfect. All right, so the first thing we have to discuss is the lecture's content, the learning sources provided, and the sources of information discovered in our research that had an impact on our understanding of the project completed in this class. So anyone like to start us off?
Sure, I'll start. Something that we covered, was that last night? It felt like forever ago, was when we were reviewing our work. Our professor, Kratz, was talking about the importance of showing our work in terms of if we're going to either just do an assignment or we have a resume or portfolio, even if you don't have a finished idea, the importance of showing your thinking on like why you're doing something. Like, let's say you had an idea for a commercial or a letterhead, like what elements you're going to use or storyboarding, because she feels that a lot of people nowadays, although you might have the technical ability, the ability not only to think, but show it well or demonstrate it to other people is a little bit lost. So in terms of like our rationale writing, I've tried to really dig into the why as to why I've put in a certain element or stuck to just one color in this application so that other people who would look at my work don't just see the work, but understand like the reasoning behind it. I thought that was a really good point in terms of getting ready for graduation. What are the most important things? It may not look exactly the way we want it to, but being able to explain well our reasoning is one of the most critical skills I think we can leave the program with.
Yeah, that's very true. And not to skip ahead, because that is my third point for today, is just struggling with that rationale and storyboarding. But it is really important. And I think to stick with this point here, it's for me, it's been about making sure that I have an easier time explaining things. So normally I'll work backwards, which is not the best thing to do, right? So I'll have like an idea about something and I'll create it and then I'll try to explain my rationale, right? So I used to not do a lot of research. And that's just something that I've had to do a lot more throughout this process, especially this month, right? So we started off with sketching and now we're actually rendering everything. So listening to the feedback and um, just working on that rationale and storyboarding has been really great. I don't know, Alyssa, if you have anything to say about storyboarding and rationale there.
Yeah, I'd say the rationale for this month has been more helpful for me, just the structure of it, than it has been previously. I think being able to have to think through why I did what I did and actually have the opportunity to explain that rather than it being very formal and more so like I don't know, research paper-esque, it being more of like the why. And yes, it's supported by research being the nature of our program, but I feel like because it's less of a just like theoretical sense, it's more like we're actually doing these things now. And so it's like, what did we actually use to make the things happen? I think for me, it's been an easier writing process because it feels applicable because there's an actual task it's associated with. So for me, that's been helpful in, finding my brand really, because yes, we've done a ton of like preliminary work as far as like voice and tone and overall visual identity, but like having these assignments like flesh it out, like what sticks, what doesn't, what's confusing, what isn't, I think was something that because we hadn't actually had to produce like actual work with our brand that I didn't have to think about in previous design rationales, whereas now I can almost link everything back to those decisions that we made previously, which is comforting to know that it's like working all that work that we had to put in prior, because there's always the fear that you get into this stage and then it doesn't work, that there's an element that you've decided on that doesn't fit, that doesn't belong. Um, but yeah, I think that the rationales this month have been more helpful than they have been in previous months, because it's actually an opportunity to like explain why you're doing what you're doing, instead of like, if I were to do X, Y, or Z, here's why I would do it, So I think they've been helpful in that sense.
Yeah. It's funny that you mentioned that because last week I went through like a mid-week crisis of rendering and I even posted it and then I erased it because I was like, that's ridiculous. I can't like start all over. I just wasn't happy with how everything was coming out at all. So like I submit the progress and then I sat back down and I was like, I need to change my logo. Like I just don't like how it looks. It looks terrible. And I started making changes. And I was like, I'm happy with this. I posted it. But then on, working for the Sunday like final update, I was like, no, I need to make this work. Like I made these decisions for a reason. And I wrote and I explained why and I circled back and it helped just kind of like going back and saying like I made these decisions because of the X, Y, and Z. And I needed to kind of like convince myself that they were the right decisions. And it helped. I mean, it's helped me this week. I finished on Wednesday and I'm honestly, I feel like I kind of finished the week already. I'll
Mm.
go back and see what else I can change, but it really helped me, you know, understand myself, right? Because I think we're the target audience at the end of the day with this assignment. We're really creating this. Sure, we're trying to pitch this to somebody else, but we have to be happy with what we're creating.
Mm.
I think, now that I reached that, I'm more comfortable with my choices, and that's awesome.
No, and that's a really good point because, like you said, having direction, all the work that we put in the last, I think, 2 months really has helped me. Like, that's not what my brand is. That's not the direction I want to take it. Even some of the initial ideas I had when we were sketching, when I looked through and started actually making them in Photoshop or Illustrator, I was like, yeah, this isn't going to work. And I stuck really, I had this whole color palette of 6 colors, and the only color I really ended up liking for these applications at least has been one.
Yeah,
And
I feel that.
working through that, I'm like, why did I think all of these different things would fold to one brand? Even my vision board, when I edited it, I was like, we're gonna take this out, take this out, take this out. Simple, clean. It's for like elementary school students. It needs to be bright, colorful, and like to the point. These teachers don't
Yeah.
have time for all these extra things. So it's realizing that much more what the professors were getting to as to what's like your bottom line and
Yeah.
going back to that. Like
It's simplifying.
this might be a great idea. It might look great, but is it your brand? And
Yeah.
it's effective. Has been like a total mindset shift for
Yeah.
me.
Yeah. One other thing I just wanted to talk about, just because I never thought about it until this course specifically, is kind of how this interactive media and like the role it can play in your brand. And it made me assess my brand, like if, obviously not necessarily applicable to this course, but if this had to translate to like a website
Hmm.
and an application, like does my brand identity as it stands now, would it translate well to those as well? And so thankfully I think the answer would be yes, based on, the work and refining we've done in this course. But I think just having almost like that extra little check, like would this actually translate to like a different form of medium that's not digital? Because I don't think, other than the letterhead package, I didn't choose any print media
Right.
to design personally. Just 'cause I didn't think that was the best representation of what my brand would be. But I just think that was an interesting way to like check myself. It's like, would this identity translate well to this other form of media that I'm not necessarily going to have to put into practice now? But yeah, I thought that was an interesting little check for myself there with
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. No, that's true. One of the resources, I think this week I might be getting them mixed up, talked about white space for web
Yep.
design.
Yeah, this week's guy.
And I was like, oh, I love white space. Like I had never thought about it outside of the aesthetic purpose of like, it just looks pretty. But adding like how it adds focus, clarity, reading through, and you're like, oh, there's actually a purpose behind it. And even though I'm pretty sure I haven't picked any web applications, like I'm doing the radio ad, but thinking through the letterhead, which I had never done one before, I'm ashamed to say, I'd never done a letterhead before, and even the handout, those design principles still work in print applications, even though we're not
Mhm.
web design. So thinking about what's my empty space, like where am I just going to let, whether it's white or just empty space without text, work for me so that it doesn't look too busy or chaotic, has been a good reminder, because I think especially for my brand, like I think the bigger the better. It's a little bit chaotic, but the simplicity is one of the things I had done for my letterhead. Like I had a background for my vision board that I tried to translate to my letterhead, but I realized it's just too distracting, I think. So making it simpler, adding some white space,
Yeah.
really helped, even though it wasn't a web page per se. I think the design principle, like that was a great reminder for me when designing some of this stuff.
Yeah, that's interesting. And I mean, if you think it's something as simple as like painting your house, for a
Mm.
long time we had that like white walls and like an accent, right? Because you didn't want to draw too much attention or close the space a lot. Because that's what color does. The darker you go, the smaller it'll become.
Mm.
So, it's really important to look at that. And yeah, I hadn't thought about that. Letterheads and websites and apps, they kind of follow the same layout. And that's true. Yeah.
At least for me, it was helpful because I was like, I've never done, like I said, a letterhead before. And I'm like, everybody's so ahead of me. Or business cards. I'm like, we're just going to go super simple and see what people say about it. So it's been great seeing everybody else's work to go off of. I'm like, what does it need to have? What does it not need to have? I appreciate having classmates.
Yeah. No, listen, for me, like my business cards, they're super simple. Like the back just has like my name as my logo, and then the front just says like business information. I don't like business cards that are too much information's on it or just too much color.
It's just
But then I was
everything
like, but I can't do that here.
clean. I don't know. I aspire to be you. Even the logo animation I was going to mention later, I'm like, I have it going from left to right. And that took me like 2 hours to do. And then one of
Listen,
our other classmates was like, I forget what she mentioned. I have to ask her again. But she's like, there's
yeah, it's the
that
it's plugins. Yeah, she was talking about. I love that, by the way. I was gonna mention like we can, if you want, we can meet and like discuss that because plugins are lifesavers. You're not Look, I installed a plugin. It's called the Saber plugin, and it immediately just it became a neon immediately. Obviously, like there's some changes that you need to make and like colors and movement and whatnot, but a lot of these things they're really, really easy to just follow through.
and it just,
But you can also get very, very detailed. And if you go online and start looking for videos, you'll have like a 1 hour tutorial on how to make something kind of like wave in, and it can get really hard. There's no need for that. Plugins, you know, everything's in there.
There's
I,
also a YouTube channel that, because I do a lot of motion graphics for my full-time job, and it's
Mhm.
called Son Duck Films, I think. Son Duck. It's literally like
That
SON.
sounds familiar.
Yeah. They are super helpful because they try to teach you the most efficient way to do it, because some tutorials and stuff can like draw out motion design and like nobody's business. But
Yeah.
they're super like clean cut to the point, like what's the most efficient way for you to get the animation you're looking for. And it walks you step by step. And even if you don't have assets you could use, like in our, like if you were just practicing, they'll provide you with like a logo
Yeah.
asset, a background. So like everything you need to practice if you wanted to, but then super easy to just put in your brand identity that you've already decided on and just follow their steps. So
Yeah.
I would recommend that as well, because that's been very helpful for me in the past.
Mhm.
So
Yeah. I love following like remakes. Like I did, I practiced with the Netflix one not so long ago, and I
Hmm.
created that with the sound and everything. It was so cool. It took like 20 minutes of just obviously following the tutorial, but it's great.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I need some of that because I was like, man, mine's lame. I got
Yeah, I'll
like
look for some
slide.
videos and I'll send them over to you because I saw your logo animation. It's great.
it
But
is.
just with like a few changes here and there, and you could probably make it like something a little bit bigger. But I think everybody did pretty good, especially from hearing like you've never used, like some people have never used After Effects or whatever, and it's like, well, it didn't look like it. 'Cause I remember when I started learning it, and that was terrible.
Ooh, it's clunky. Like my computer is dying when I use it, but I'll definitely look into some of that because I think it'll get me where I want to be a little bit faster, even if it's not perfect, because you can get lost in all the details of a program like that.
There's a lot of buttons in there.
Yes. Yeah, and then one other thing, there's keyframe assistants that have changed my life. If if you don't use, to me, the motion design now looks super choppy if you're not using your keyframe assistants, and then also turning your motion blur filter on. Because if you do those two things, it takes a simple wipe to look totally different than
Mhm.
just a wipe. So that was also helpful too. So yeah.
Notes. I'm taking notes. Just here. As motion whizzes, I'm not. So
No, no.
No, not at all. Listen, some people are. They know
Yeah.
how to. You ask them to make something, and they're just 10 minutes in and out, and they're done. Especially if you go into like Fiverr and look at some of the examples there, forget it. They'll get like really crazy stuff. But no, plugins, I can't remember what Caroline mentioned, but those are really good too because they're essentially mock-ups. They're templates where you just apply them to your images and then it'll automatically do it. And then you just go in, obviously make changes, change your color, the sizes, and whatever it is that you want to change, but they're all in there.
that's, I appreciate it. Thank you.
I feel like we've already kind of transitioned to the challenges thing, so let's just stick with it and we'll do our brands last. How about
Yeah.
that? Are you good with that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, Millie, do you have any other challenges?
Well, that was helpful on the animation side. It's also been my first time working with mockups. I had done social media mockups, and I still, like Lauren was telling me about how sometimes to edit the text, you have to click a different way in Photoshop. Like I thought I knew Photoshop and it wasn't editing the default names. So I have to go back and change some of those. But in terms of letterheads, I thought were paper products, like the shadow impacted what you make more than I thought. Like it looked a certain way, and then I'd put it into a mock-up and I'm like, it looks darker or more dim. And I'm like, I don't just exit out everything and it would look super flat. So that's something I've also been working on my like competency with. It was new for me. So
Have you looked at creating your own mockups? Like have you gone into YouTube to see or
no.
you
I'm like,
okay.
send me a preset. I need help. I can barely do the preset, Joanna. Like,
Never mind. No, look, I don't create my own mockups. They're a lot of work. Especially with letterheads, like just papers and things like that.
mm,
They can get very, very complicated. Even like putting a logo on a shirt and making sure that you can see like the movement of the shirt is really hard to do. And if you aren't an expert in Photoshop, it's gonna get tough. Um,
because
but YouTube,
you're doing swag. So with clothing, I just feel like it's a different
I
beast.
think that's where my my breakdown last week happened when I put my logo on a black jersey. I was like, this looks terrible. I was like, I can't. It looks so ugly, and that's why I went white because I was like, no, I can't deal with black.
Yeah. I also have, I loved your jersey design and everything, but if you're wanting a different mock-up,
Mhm.
I can send it to you because the one we use for the team I work for, it's
Okay.
like $300 purchase or whatever, but they're just being very nice and just sending it to me. Um,
That'd
I
be
can send that
great.
to you if you wanted to look at it. And there's also like an animated one if you wanted to use
Okay.
that in like your final presentation too, that like
Yes.
spins.
I
Um,
love that.
so
I spent like 2 weeks prior to, just because I knew what was coming up looking, and I couldn't, I settled for this one because I was like, this is the best that I could find because I
yeah.
did not want to create one, but that would be amazing. Thank you.
They're
Yeah.
a little clunky as far as like getting the proportions right, but
Okay.
it automatically like adds, like the shadows and
The
everything.
shadows and
Make it
everything.
on a you make it on a flat
Mm-hmm.
dot file. So everything's like it would be if you were sending it to the print, to actually print on
Really?
the jersey. And then
Okay.
it translates that into the mock-up instead of
I
having
love
to like actually adjust like the proportion
Yeah,
angles of
I had
everything.
to do that a lot. I had to, I mean, look, the mockup was already set up, right? You have to click the 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 layer and everything, but you would have to like move it a little bit, save, go back. Okay, no, we have to change this, the shadow here, and it's like it can get really tedious.
Yeah. Yeah, I saved that for the last week because I know it's gonna stress me out. So I'm like, I just need to
Yeah.
get through some of the other stuff first. So more power to you for tackling the beast first.
Yeah,
So
I thought it would be easy. I've done shirts before and designs like that, but forget it. But I honestly I went simple. I was like, let me just change colors, put my logo there and focus more, like take advantage of the colors that I could add to it and
mm,
not stress out about my logo because it's just look, I almost changed my entire brand. It was ridiculous.
No, and I think, going with white fits what you had presented for the other things, like the super clean look with the
Hmm.
purple. I
yeah.
think that
Okay,
contrast was really nice. Even
thank
though
you.
you might have had a panic attack, I think going with white instead of black was the best choice there.
The best choice. Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, no, I was stressing out about it way too much. It's just, not necessary.
Funny. Out of the last group of assets, which ones are you guys doing? Because I'm doing the radio ad. Is that what y'all are doing too?
No, I
I'm
think
doing
I
the
went difficult
commercial.
here. Let me see. I think I
Yeah.
chose website
Oh man.
and what else? Let me see.
Yeah,
Because
I'm doing the video commercial
oh
and
really? All
I'm
doing
I'm kind of regretting that decision because now I'm trying to recolor everything to
uh,
actually be my colors brands or my brand's colors. So it's gonna be
and
interesting.
I think she has shared in lectures that if we make a choice because something would fit better or would be more doable, we could in our production schedule. Like we don't have to stick
Mhm.
to it. But yeah, changing the colors that is a challenge.
A
Yeah.
challenge, yeah. Yeah, I chose website and ticket package, and now that I say that out loud, I think I left the two worst ones that I could have left for the end. Shoot. We'll
I
see how that
felt
goes.
confident with the radio ad because I'm more familiar with doing things like that outside of
Okay.
come up with copy. Like I knew the logo animation would be the hardest for me. So I'm like, let me put that on the third week, not the week we have to do our video. But yeah, it can be changed in case you guys didn't know that. I think she's giving us the flexibility.
Okay. Okay, that's good to know. I might change it. Let's see how I feel next week.
Yeah.
With
Yeah,
but
'cause I was planning on trying to sneak and get the hockey boys to just throw on one of their black practice jerseys and get some footage this week. And of course, they decide to leave because we have Disney on Ice this week at the arena. So they're not here all this week. So now I'm like, well, now I have to bother them on a game week, but it's okay. They'll be all right. They can throw on a jersey for
That's
me
awesome.
all today. So it's okay.
Nice.
But
That
yeah,
makes things easier. I love that for you. That's like cool.
it is very interesting because it is like having 20 older brothers all the time. And now I'm asking them to do something that is not required of their paycheck. And so I'm being very selective with who I ask. Like, who owes me one? Who would be, like nice? Who's gonna give me attitude? So I'm having to like filter through, and like all the photos that I'm using are like my photos I've taken.
Mhm.
And thankfully we had a Blue Angels jersey earlier in the season where they wore gold helmets. So I don't
Nice,
have
that
to
look.
recolor gold helmets. I just have to change the blue to my brand's blue,
Yeah,
which is taking forever. So it's okay.
that's awesome. That's cool.
So it's interesting.
Opportunity. What websites, just because I'm curious, do you guys use for like stock music?
For
Because
stock music,
yeah, because for like the radio ad, I've been looking at a few free ones and those always are like not the best. Um, or sometimes the search filters on those don't have the criteria I'm looking for. So if there's
right?
any that might be a little better, at least. Because I
I
think
I
like using Epidemic Sound.
it's I had heard about music bed, but some of these are expensive. Like,
You can get a 7-day trial with Epidemic Sound, and it's pretty cool. I also use YouTube, and I just convert video to sound sometimes, like if I really like something. And those are also free.
hmm,
Yeah. I use Motion Array, so that's usually where I find my music, but that's just something I've had to use in my big girl job. But I know they have free stuff on there as well, like as far as like sound effects and music beds and things of that nature.
They also have really great mock-ups in general, like for
Mhm.
videos and things like that. Yeah.
Yeah,
on
so
Epidemic or Motion Ray.
Motion Array.
Oh, I hadn't checked there.
Look, if you look at their motion graphics, you might have some cool ideas there that you could possibly play around with.
And yeah, I really will have to like I'll review some tonight because I usually like to get all of my assets done so that then we can write the paper, the rationale for them. But some of these resources I just wasn't aware of. So
Yeah.
it's gonna be exciting to look at some options. Write that down.
okay. So we have about 18 minutes left to our 45-minute mark.
Yes.
So if anyone has anything else they would like to say about challenges, and then we can use our last 15 minutes to talk
Just a
about.
question, actually, for Melissa. What do you are you kind of do you want to continue with the logo animation that you have, like that style?
No, I was deciding between blocking in which the block, note, and
Mhm.
play because they're different words. And then I have like these lines that come out with a plink, like the tuning fork sound, which
Right,
is one of
yeah.
my original logo ideas. Or if to do a flowing like fill into the
Okay.
color of note play that then ends with the plink. The only
Right.
thing I'm attached to is like the fun little plink sound at the end with the
At
end.
the end.
Everything
Okay.
else can kind of change to what works
Yeah.
best.
Let me see if I can find something for you that you could like use. Do you want to learn, or do you want to just, like
I,
learn how to create those yourself, or would you like a plugin?
are they on a plugin would be great because I haven't had a lot of experience with it. Is it an After Effects plugin? Because I was actually
Yeah.
trying. Okay, maybe I'll try After Effects because I
You're using
tried
Premiere?
Motion.
Motion. Okay. Let me see what I can find.
Sometimes some things work just in Premiere. Sometimes they just work in Motion.
Yeah.
Sometimes both.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. I'll see if I can find something for you and send it over. If not, just like a little tutorial, and see how you feel about it.
that would be great.
Awesome.
I'm a handout. Write some copy, which I have not done enough of. So that'll be all of tomorrow morning.
So let's talk about our brands. I can go first. Knock it out. I feel like because we have been dealing with a lot of different mediums and obviously the hockey theme, a brand that I really appreciate that's consistent no matter the medium is the Carolina Hurricanes. I think that they kind of have it locked down, whereas I feel like most professional hockey teams should, but they don't always like get married to their brand, whereas I feel like the Hurricanes really do a good job of it. So even like their website, um, pretty much everything they do has the same feel, vibe to it, regardless of like the content they're choosing. Um, like their Facebook page, which this was I was kind of wanting to use my tagline and because of stuff that they do. Obviously that was not well received, so I've moved on from using that. But I appreciated that apart about their brand. But even like they tailor their media to look different depending on the platform, which I think is nice because like they've got this almost like dark theme here, whereas the lighter theme on Twitter. I don't think it would load. It wasn't loading for me earlier on Instagram, and I still think it's gonna be a pain, but it's not gonna do it. And then I downloaded their app because I was like, they've got to still knock it out of the park as far as that goes, because we were talking about, interactive media and kind of things that users would have to engage in. And I was like, I wonder if they stay consistent, and they did. They kept even their little loading signal was branded, which I thought was a good little touch there. Um, every single aspect of their app was branded. Even this little like pop-up ad was branded, which I really appreciated. And I just thought was a good example of how, a strong visual identity is going to translate to everything that a brand does. And they just do a really good job at making sure it stays consistent no matter what it is they're talking about, no matter what the media. I mean, even their imagery, like everything is pretty much red, black, and white primarily in everything that they do, which I appreciate. So that is my brand
I
to.
like that. I like that their app and the website. I mean, most sports teams' websites, they always feel very cluttered,
Mhm.
and you don't get that sense looking at, especially their app. I always feel I'm a season ticket member of Inter Miami, and
Mhm.
I hate their app. It's just there's way too much information.
I'm
And
so jealous that those words just came out of your mouth, just to say that I'm
really,
so jealous. I am obsessed with their brand, especially their social media. Like I've screenshotted so many of their story graphics and stuff. So, oh my gosh,
they've
I'm
really upped their game. I've had some critiques of a few things here and there, just like their choice of wordings, and especially with the signings that they had. But you can't always bat 100, I think, and I'm also looking at it from the eyes of a designer. I don't think normal people aren't looking at it like that. Um, but yeah, they're great. Look, I've applied to work with them, and not a peep. So it's funny. Yeah, not a peep from them, but no, it's great. They're really cool, and the team is really good now, so that's a plus.
I love the pink. I'm here for the pink.
Yes, yes, I love it. It works really great with the brand, not so much with their jerseys. They kind of look like little Pepto-Bismol bottles running around.
I could see that. I could
Yeah,
see
and
that.
listen, I like my favorite. I love pink, so wherever I can just throw it in there, I will throw it in there. So when I first saw their logo and I was like, pink and black, great. First match, Pepto-Bismol bottles. It was really bad.
They didn't
Yeah.
really think that one through, you know.
I just like put like, I don't know, add a little bit of gray in there or something, just a little bit of black. Just change the tone and it'll fix it. But like people like it. And
Hmm.
just because I don't like it doesn't mean other people won't.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And what
that's
I like
awesome.
about that brand that you shared is the power of color. because it's not a whole lot. There's not a whole, color is, I think, one of the main driving things identifying their brand, and how effective it is kind of amazing to me. Like, I don't know about hockey, I'm sorry to say. I'm like the odd girl out here, but I'm like, you know what? I can tell it's a team, and these are all related one to the next, from one platform to the next. And the shade of red and how they're applying it and integrating it in from their app to their social media platform, like, it makes sense and it's not complicated. I feel like in terms of the assignments, I'm making it more complicated than it needs to be. People need something simple to catch on to and be able to recognize from one thing to the next. And I think they at least have that down. I don't know about the Pepto-Bismol uniforms, but in terms of what Alyssa chose to share with us, I think it makes sense and it's easily recognizable. So
Yeah. No, and even in their pictures too, I like they pull a lot of focus into their reds and some of the blacks that have red on it. I love that. It's really cool.
It's really effective. They do a really good job as far as translating everything to their visual identity instead of, I feel like some hockey teams try to just like force their visual identity into their sport, whereas they kind of integrate it, which is really nice. So I appreciate it.
great note.
So I think I can go next. I have a video to share for Nike. It's pretty short. Let me see here. Let me just make sure that the sound is active too. Is that big for you? Can you see it in the?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was it. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with the Flyknit Nike shoes.
I'm
No?
not.
No, okay. So they're the basic gist of it is that they're lightweight and form-fitting. So when you walk on them, it's almost like you're walking barefoot. Like you will feel your feet. They're running shoes, and the whole idea was that your best way to run is barefoot. I don't know if you've ever heard of that before. Like they have those shoes where they're basically like socks. Um, so it's kind of just like going back in time to like caveman days where that was like the best way to run. Not only are you really close with the elements and like the ground and just earth in general, it's just really good for your back and your posture and everything. So that was their whole brand identity during this period of time. So the reason why I chose them was because every time, I don't know if you've noticed, but every time that they release a new shoe, they go through a whole like rebrand process. So obviously their logos remain the same for years, but if you go into their website, you'll notice that like colors change and their whole brand identity, even the way that they use pictures on the page will change. It's kind of contrasting Apple a little bit. You know how Apple, every time they have a new phone, it's the same thing, right? With Nike, they'll try to make it a little bit different, and I don't think that that's easy to do. I think it's really hard to maintain the message of who you are as a company, but also make it different and make it interesting. So it's not just so much about every shoe that they release, it's also about the message that they're trying to send. And in this, like you saw here, it's lightweight, it's form fitting. It's almost like you're running barefoot. So I just thought that was really cool. There was a thing that I was going to mention before in the first topic, a quote that I really liked in one of the lectures, which was smart people are always trying to learn. And I think that Nike's a company that does it perfectly. I think even in like their negative attention that they get sometimes, they're always able to spin it very well, where like the people will just instantly forget because now they have this new shoe and here's this pretty commercial and look how pretty it's going to look and look at the colors and it's very like techno and advanced and it's just a company that's able to do it very well and I've kind of used them this past week to try to mimic a lot of what they do and they're the ones that I kind of got the idea to do the glitch logo animation from. They did that a few years back with one of their shoes and I just thought it's so cool. It's very simple. It's just like this little glitch thing that's coming in and it just fades out and then that's it. But it's memorable. You're always going to associate that with whatever brand it is, whatever shoe it is that they released. Yeah, that's it.
Wow, that's cool. Like, let me tell you, I do not know anything about those shoes, but when I watched that short ad, I could have told you. I would have gotten my answer right because they perfectly encapsulated the idea of like, this feels like if you're running barefoot.
Yep.
Mhm.
Not just with how the model started, but the way that they animated in the shoe, that it's so
Yeah.
close, like they got that idea perfectly. I would have been able to describe it the same way that you have, which is
Yes.
amazing. We just need
Yeah,
to
it's great. And they do that. You should like watch some of their commercials. They're so good at just like they kind of just like reduce it to its simplest form. Like, what are we trying to tell you about our shoe? And it's, yeah, it's lightweight and it fits your feet the way that so that you can feel barefoot. And that's it. It's something so simple, but really cool and modern at the same time.
Mm. And I still feel like the look of the ad reflected the Nike brand. Like it was super
Yeah.
simple, like really black, minimal. You just saw the
Yeah.
model and it really was about the shoe. Like nothing
Yeah.
else stood out to me. So
Yes.
excellent work. I think
Yeah.
that's a great example.
Yeah, for sure. I think that it's a good thing to note, especially being that we're working with so many different mediums. It's like they really took something that was a physical shoe and translated it into, a video format that was effective in communicating the benefits of purchasing that shoe. So I think that was an awesome representation of how to take your actual benefits and features of your item or brand or what have you and like translate it into something that's not necessarily the physical item or service that you're providing. So yeah.
Yeah. Side note, don't use them to exercise unless you're only running. Your feet will slide because they're very like large at the front so that your toes like spread out. Because again, it's the whole thing, like it's almost like you're barefoot. So if you're not running, probably don't use them.
Okay.
And I don't think they want people to know that.
Noted. Noted.
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay, I am going to be the worst at this, and I wish I wasn't. Let's see if I have my audio working. Man, this looks like a Nike commercial with the feet already. But there's IKEA. And this is an IKEA ad for India. Like I think we're very familiar with the context in America and how they market here, but IKEA is almost a worldwide brand. So seeing how their brand voice and messaging fits here was great, even though it still looks and sounds like them. So let's see if this works. Hear it?
Furniture that grows with you. Ghar aa jao. Come home to IKEA.
So, that's not IKEA. I don't know. Oh, that is IKEA. Let's see. But yes, I thought IKEA was a great example because when you think about, and I don't know how to unshare. There we go. Assets. I would say that their primary assets are the furniture they sell itself, which all looks different, it all feels different. But you go to the store, it's a whole branded experience. You can get a bag, a pencil, all their instructions have a little guy. It looks the same. It's like line art. It's like a whole thing. When I thought about it, I'm like, I just have one little piece of IKEA furniture, but it's a whole brand. And it all feels the same, even though it's so different, whether you have like a bed like that's shown in the ad, or one of those like cubic storage units, or like a light. I don't know. It all feels IKEA to me. I don't know how to describe it. What would be the best way to put that in the simplest terms? But in terms of their assets, I think they've nailed the benefit they give you of like furniture that makes your life easy. Like it'll fit perfectly in your home. It'll grow with you, like this ad shares, and even being able to work it into a context that would work not in America, but like in India, I think is such a beautiful thing that we were kind of discussing in terms of Jeffrey's brand, because he has a evergreen, like this Zen idea that's very Eastern, like Asian, and how could we describe that in American terms? So I thought this was a beautiful way of like, this is a very, well, it's a Swedish brand, but they made it work for this context. So I don't know. I had never thought about IKEA as a brand until recently. And I'm like, that's actually amazing. They're a great brand. They do it so well.
They have a great brand, and I think even when you go to like to IKEA and the showcasing of how they have all of the little rooms, everything is very symmetrical, everything works. I don't know if you've used the computers at their stations,
Mm.
and like they have like the little design tools. It just everything feels the same. It's really cool.
Yeah.
I
Like,
I feel like they're also a brand that, you know, their products and the service they produce is so like well received that they almost their actual like visual identity doesn't necessarily have to be like this big grand thing. Like it's
Mhm.
like let our products speak for themselves. That's
Yeah.
their brand. Like it's like
Yeah.
we're gonna provide, you know, the same experience no matter what country you're in, you know, and so it's like the power of our product is literally in your hands because you have to build the things yourself. And so it's like they're almost like they can hide behind that. And I think that's like a really cool aspect of their brand. It's like let it speak for itself. Our little, you know, blue and yellow oval square. That's all we need. We don't need anything to woo you, really, you
Yeah,
know.
it's
So
so true. It's because they're reliable. And they've
mhm.
kind of just like flipped it over to us. Like it's you chose this, you get to build it, you get to experience it. I love that ad. It was really good. The whole like grow with it. It's great.
And I think it's like what Alyssa was saying about features and benefits, like they don't really detail any specifics in terms of their furniture. It's all about the benefit. It's like they're selling you the IKEA lifestyle. And
Yeah.
everything that you can go like, here, you can have this on your deck and this in the corner, and it'll just make your life better. Which would sound ridiculous. I think you tried to pitch it to somebody, but they're making it work. Like I don't
and
know how.
even the shot of the mom or older sister, whatever role she was supposed to play, just with the little Allen wrench, super user
Just
friendly. It's like got that. Like it's like that speaks volumes. That shot alone, that it's as easy as having an Allen wrench
yeah.
that they're probably going to provide that you can experience this too, and you know have this experience with your child or sister or whomever. And it's like it's so effective. It's so
Yes.
effective.
Like the coming
And
of
the
age,
thing,
it's just, I don't know. You want
yeah.
that.
Yeah. And it's true, which is the comforting part, is that most of us have experienced it. We bought things from IKEA and it is just as simple as just having a little tool and that's it. And like you said, they'll probably give it to you. It's probably included.
Probably included. You don't even have to buy it yourself.
Hmm.
And it's user friendly and you get the benefit of saying that you built it, and it's in some way you're taking ownership over that piece of furniture now because it's not just delivery guys showing up and it's already assembled. So it's kind of changes your experience with your furniture. You'll probably value it a little bit more after you sit there and piece it together rather than it just kind of being brought into your home as something that someone else made. So super effective there. Great example. All right. Is there anything else anyone else would like to say about this discussion today? I think it was a great discussion.
I think so too. I think we jumped around a little bit, but it worked.
Mhm.
We
I think
hit all
did
the
good.
points we needed to hit, so I think we're
Yeah.
good.